Oh, hello and welcome to another episode of the Footy Dictionary. It's the much heralded, closing in on the much heralded episode 10. We're at number 7, Hamish O'Brien. How are you feeling, mate?
Very, very well. It's good to be back. It's been a little while, so I'm looking forward to it.
It's been a little while. We've got a very, very special guest today for Things About Football, as we call this series. But first, before we go to our very special guest and talk about his niche loves and niche hates of footy, Hamish, for you, some adjudications. The Tribunal, first off, on the AFL Women's website and app and all the media going around, they've got the abbreviations for all the stadiums. So Icon Park is IKP, Adelaide Oval's AO, RSEA Park and Moorabbin's RSEA. Victoria Park, Collingwood's home ground, they've gone with VIPC. Surely you agree with me, that's not acceptable.
That is pretty deplorable. It's so obvious to go something that isn't VIPC. Where does the C come into it? Because if it's VIC, that makes complete sense. What other option do they have?
Is there? Yeah, it's pretty blasphemic, if you ask me. And I think we were talking in the group chat. I think the maximum you can go with for an abbreviation is 4 letters, unless it's like a GMHBA. Then you just go with GMHBA. So what would you go with for Vic Park? Like a VICP or a VP even?
I reckon VP or VIC. I mean, there's no other.
Yeah.
VIC, I don't reckon there's any other stadiums or grounds around that are rolling with VIC as their abbreviation, so I'd probably stick with that.
I'm on board with that. Absolutely. Yep. Ryan Daniels from Channel 7 in Perth, are you on board with that?
I am. I can't understand where the C comes from. So it's got to be VICP or VP, right? There's no... Even if you went VICPK or VPK, maybe. That's hideous to me. Hideous.
VICPK is a little bit clunky for me, but I agree with you. VP, VICP, that would be, acceptable for sure. But Hamish, you had a question for an adjudication for our guest?
I do. Now, Rhino, as you've come to be known, Harper and I were discussing pre-show about footballing nicknames, animal-related nicknames as such. We got the pig, we got duck, we got fish, we got spider, we got birdman, we got them all. I want to ask you, are there any animals that have been shunned, underrepresented from the footballing nickname vernacular?
Well, we've also got horse, right? Horse Longmire.
Absolutely.
Yep. So that's another one too. Look, I think it's the names of, like, we got goat. Do we have a goat? Is it Ablett Jr.? Do we give him goat?
We raised that pre-show as well, but does that, is he named after the animal? I think he's just named after the initialism, isn't he?
Yeah, that's true. It's not really the animal itself. I'd like to see more farm animals brought into it. I mean, like a cow. What does the cow not get a run? The cow gives us so much. It gives us milk and yogurt and ice cream and beef. And what we can't get a representation. But no one wants to be called the cow. No one wants that. That's the problem.
Paddy Cripps, Nat Fyfe's a bull, but what would a cow be? What kind of player or person would a cow be?
Well, if they're the inside ball, the cow would have to be, you'd say, an outside player then, wouldn't you? I mean, but they're not very fast either. Yeah,
got to be reliable.
This is why there's no cows. This is why.
Or someone who's got a moo in their last name, like the moo sound.
Yeah,
I don't know who that would be.
I was going to suggest a workhorse type player, but then that just takes them into the horse range, I suppose. So it's doubling up against itself, but they'd have to be reliable.
What about someone who like milks free kicks a lot? Because then you've got the milk and the cow. Like someone who stages, one of those small forwards who. What about Hayden Ballantyne would have been a good cow because he was always milking everything, gets a little nudge.
He's a bit too small to be a cow, though, maybe. Cows need to be a bit bulkier.
He's more of a calf than a cow.
A calf. Yeah, but the calves don't produce milk is the issue. And also, it's usually the fans or the teammates of a player that anoint a nickname onto the player.
True.
And you wouldn't really give a player a nickname about milking for free kicks. Like Joel Selwood's teammates wouldn't call him the cow or take the piss out for milking free kicks.
Like
publicly.
The cows, it's like adored in like Indian culture, right? They're the ones who love the cows. Is that right?
Yeah.
So like they respect the cows so much, and we pretend like it doesn't exist.
Neglect them.
I know former Essendon number 41, who might have played about 20 games, Ben McNeice, had some Indian ancestry. So maybe he could be the cow, potentially. Again,
he
a bit
would
of
have
a
been the
slighter
cow.
build.
That's what they used to call him, Ben McNeice, the cow.
And we've also got Andrew McGrath, the pigeon, Wayne Kerr, the duck, as we mentioned, Michael Hurley, the bear, Jason Dunstall, the pig, Kevin Murray, the bulldog, with some that we have listed down.
But Ricky Nixon was chicken.
I was about to say, do not forget the chicken train.
And another chicken who I've actually got a bit of a deep dive about is a man who played from 1930 to 1940, Brownlow medalist in 33 for Fitzroy, Wilfred Smallhorn.
Yes, I remember that name. Yes, I remember when I used to like memorise all those Brownlow medalists and stuff, and I remember laughing at that guy's name every time. It was one of the great names in footy.
And the nickname is so kind of bedded in to like the footy culture and just the way we speak about him that the title for him on Wikipedia is Wilfred Chicken Smallhorn. You don't get Wayne Duck Carey on Wikipedia. It's that big. It's amazing.
So good.
So good. But speaking of so good, I reckon it's just about time we get into your niche loves and hates, Ryan Daniels. So you've got 3 for each, 3 niche loves, 3 niche hates of footy. Do you want to hit us with your first niche love, please?
First, can I say I love this concept because it wasn't until you asked me to start trying to work out what my niche loves and hates were that I realised there's so many things that you just don't think about, and that's why you love the game, but you don't realise it's why. Like, everyone just sees highlights and, grand final day and yada, yada, yada. But this is the stuff I think that actually is the undercurrent. It's really important. So well done to you boys for pulling this out. So my first one, I don't know if I have to do them in the order I sent you, and I've lost the order, so I'm just going to go with it. I love footy songs that have a brass instrument. Now, I think if you look at the songs, let's go through the teams with great songs, right? You've got the Sydney Swans, the D's, Richmond, North Melbourne. They're some of my favourites. And the other one is one of the new kids on the block, GWS, which I think have somehow bucked the trend and made a modern footy song that stands up with some of those all-time great songs. If you look at the ones before GWS, Gold Coast, that song sucks. The Brisbane Lions, that song sucks. The Adelaide Crows sucks. Eagles, Dockers, Port, they all suck. None of them have any brass in them. None. So if you're ever creating a new club, if the people who are making the Tassie team are listening to this, don't muck around with anything other than a brass instrument. Get the whole band in there. Like, you don't try to be too clever and too modern. It's brass all the way.
That was so powerful.
Absolutely.
We need to clip that up and send it to the AFL. That was...
We do.
You can't tell me that you sit in the crowd before a big game and the D song comes up, keep your eye on the red and then that's just magic. But then you've got the power song comes on and it's just like, come on, man. Like, this does not do anything for me, like anything at all. You remember that week when the Giants made the grand final and the big, big sound memes? Like,
yeah,
it's one of the best weeks I've ever had in football. Like, for no reason at all. It did. It just took over my life that week. I was like, I just hook them into my veins. I need more big, big sound. And that's what I'm saying. They figured out the recipe, man. I'm going to give Sheedy credit because I know Sheedy would have been involved somehow in that.
One of the dudes from the Cat Empire, if you know that band, was actually involved in writing the GWS song.
Really?
So massive credit to him too. I think it might have been Harry James Angus. I could be wrong on that. It might be picking the wrong band member.
The Cow.
But also, the Cow! Harry James Angus the Cow. We've got it right there. We're only 10 minutes in. We've gone full circle. We just end the recording there. Bang.
Unbeatable.
But what really irritates me, like you said, Port Adelaide and Freo and West Coast, they don't have any semblance of any brass at all in their songs. But Brisbane's really irks me because you're meant to have the full kind of mirroring of the verse in the brass version, of course, between the verses. Brisbane gives a little dangling of it. It's like a 4-bar, 2-bar thing. It's that
bit's pretty good.
Another verse.
Yeah,
it's
that
good,
bit's
but
pretty
why
good.
don't they go the whole hog?
Yep, I agree. They just teased us a little bit there. See, I don't like that. And that's what frustrates me about those songs. There's no pace to them. There's nothing that makes you get up and want to dance. Like, you're going to want to have to dance to a footy song, right? Like, even Carlton, like, one of my best mates is a Carlton fan, and I remember, like, we were growing up, I used to give him so much shit about their song because, to me, it kind of sounds like the song you'd put on at an old people's home to get them up and dancing. Like, just a little bit of a slow-moving sort of vibe. But I love it.
Absolutely.
Like, it's so charming in its own way, but it's built for senior citizens.
I don't think that the Brisbane theme song's the only music played at the Gabba that we'll be talking about episode. We might come to that in your hates. But we spoke about this with Daniel Churdy as well, and I know we're bringing it up for the second episode in a row. But one of the great things about listening to footy, especially on the radio, on the TV as well, but it's when you'll have the commentator, so the final siren goes, and then the commentator will say, final score, Brisbane 10-11-71 to Carlton 9-3-57. And then the first verse plays, and then their instrumental brass bit plays, and they give their little recap summary of the game during that brass bit. And then the second verse comes back in, and then they let that play out. It's beautiful, and when it's time to perfection, it is just something to behold.
I want them to do that at my funeral. Like, at the part where, like, before the eulogy, just be like, he was 75, and then, like, bring on the song, and then, like, wait a little bit, and then do the rest of the eulogy. Like, because that's poetry. I listened to that episode this morning, and I was like, it's something this is what I was saying before, you never talk about this stuff, but it's in your soul, and you feel it. And now that we've brought it up, we're all going to recognise it a little bit more, I think, next year when we're sitting at the footy. But and it's the same for when they're running out, and there's that little moment where the commentary teams just kind of let that first bit play, that real powerful bit at the start of if it's a good song, if it's a brass song, and then it pumps out, and you just get that, I'm alive. Like, there's nothing quite like it. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Post-game, siren goes, great little bit of commentary, leave it, and then come back to it after the main chunk is out. That is beautiful stuff.
I think full credit has to go to the Fable Singers for getting such a simple formula so right. Like, they did it the first time, probably played a little demo and went, this is perfect, we'll leave it here. And they've gone just a little instrumental, chorus, bang, that's it. Yep. And they've done that for all 10 songs at the time or whatever it was, and they've stuck with that, and that's how it should be.
That's one of the things I think, like, I did a deep dive on this a few years back about these Fable Singer dudes and, like, how they basically sung every single song other than the brand new ones. And they got hardly any credit for it, really, did they? They didn't make that much money out of it. Like, they sort of got paid like a wage or something to come in and just sing. Like, these guys are like icons in our sport. They should be, like, out there on grand final day with it's left my brain. Up there, Kazali, old mate.
Mike Brady.
Yeah, Mike Brady. They should be out there with Mike. Like, it's insane to me that these guys don't get more credit, because that was the formula, right? Instead of getting Birds of Tokyo to sing the Eagles song, just get the fabled singers back, man. Like, you don't need anything else.
Underrepresented, much like cows, I think.
Correct.
I think it's a blight on our national game. But there's obviously some like royalty kind of issues or something going on here. But the Fable Singers versions of all the footy songs aren't on Spotify, and it's disgraceful.
It's actual bullshit. I used to have a CD that had all the songs on it, and it was the Fable Singers with all of them. And I think I've still got it somewhere. I just don't have any contraption that can play a CD anymore. So that's my issue. Like, I've got the CD and it's useless now.
I've got a book with all the music of all the footy songs written down in musical notation, and in the top right corner it's got the original songs that all the footy songs are based off. I looked up all these original songs, and none of them are really much like what they've become at all. They're just like plucked one little line out of the melody, and the writers of Fable Singers have done absolute wonders. It's so good. Yeah. But should we move on to your second love, Ryan?
Yes, let's do that. Okay, so my second love is, and it particularly involves Craig Willis. Now, Craig Willis is the guy who used to do all of the AFL announcements, right? So he had that powerful, booming voice. Anyone who's listened to footy in the last, 30, 40 years would remember Craig Willis's voice. And, is it welcome to the 2021 AFL Grand Final? Now, he doesn't do it anymore. He doesn't do the presentation anymore, which is gut-wrenching. So my second love is a combination of Craig Willis's voice mixed with how we read out the Premiership players in number order after they win the flag. Like, I can remember being a little kid and watching grand finals and just trying to remember each number before it got announced, and they would come up and I'd be like, oh, what number's like the star player? Well, Carey's coming up. He's number 18. And they're going to get a big cheer for him. Like, it's just this one, and no one else does that. Like, you just read the name out, right? Like, in any other sport, they all just sort of jump on a stage together, and like maybe you might bring them up one by one, but you don't do the whole number order thing. It's one of those weird little unique parts of our game that I think it's kind of sweet. And Craig Willis's voice on top of that, iconic.
Well, I love the fact that you touched on Craig Willis, because I've been a massive fan for years, and I think, Harper, I've brought this up with you before we started this podcast.
Many times.
There's another gentleman floating around that doesn't get enough credit for his work, but I don't know if you're aware of the name Rod Mulliner, Ryan, but he does the Channel 7 promos for all
is that
games.
The guy?
Yeah. So
I love that guy.
Yeah, so it took me a little while to work out that they're two different people, Craig Willis and Rod Mulliner. And, but they're both beautiful in their own right, because Craig, he used to do the presentations on the ground and have that beautiful voice. And then nothing, I don't know, maybe you guys agree, maybe you don't, I don't know, but nothing gets me going more than when Rod Mulliner, the Tigers and the Pies, this Friday night, like before the game sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, they do those little packages. There's like a 2-minute package before the game. There was one awesome one. I reckon it was Carlton were involved this year. It was like towards the end of the season. It must have been a Friday night. And like, I was ready to run through a brick wall, like after listening to Rob Mulliner.
Rob Mulliner.
The tone that he uses, and like, it's so cool. Like, I love that.
Gets the blood pumping, doesn't it?
Yes, it really does. And they got this, they make it like they can take Paddy Cripps, who other than his football ability, he's a really nice fella, Paddy, but like he can turn Paddy Cripps into Superman, like just by using a few words and a certain tone and some slow motion pictures. And it's like, yeah, fucking Paddy Cripps, man. Like, I'm all the way in here. Like, it's really good.
Well, in my eyes, he is Superman, but that's up for you guys.
Was it Craig Willis, the guy that you said was the grand final announcer?
Yeah.
It's so good when there's a star player and there's a particular rumbling tone of voice that he uses when that star player is coming up onto the dais to collect their medal. It's like, number 4, Dustin Martin, that kind of thing. I can't do it well, but it's that kind of thing. And
it's because he knew Craig had a radar for it.
Oh, absolutely he did. And there's this... I've never been to a grand final, but I feel like there's a sense of anticipation that builds, like in the players preceding the star player before he comes up to collect his premiership medal. And I think it's a real shame that Dustin Martin has such a low number because 3-time Norm Smith medal winner, 3-time premiership player, obviously, and he was just out of the way right at the start, and then you had to wait until Trent Cotchin, the captain.
This is a good point.
Right at the end. And
do you know it's like a big thing, right? Well, it's a big thing within clubs to get low numbers. Like, so all the players kind of want to have a low number because that kind of means you're in the best group of players at the club. Like, I know, like at the Eagles, they call the low numbers Mayfair. Like, because it's like, there's star after star after star, maybe not so much now, but in their heyday, it was like all the guns are in that sort of row. And it should be the other way around. Like, I remember that Richmond grand final with Marlon Pickett, and he was number 50, I think. And when his name got read out, I don't think I've ever heard a louder roar. And the anticipation, like everyone kind of must have forgotten about Pickett, because it was like, Dusty, Tom Lynch, Revolt. And then it was like, oh, yeah, Marlon Pickett, like playing his first game in a grand final. It was insane. I have never heard a roar like that in my life. It was magic. So, what do you reckon the ideal number is for a superstar? Because as you say, Dusty was a bit too soon. Like, I feel like it's somewhere in the 15 to 25 range.
That's exactly. I was thinking high teens, low 20s. Yeah. Matthew was 18. Perfect.
Yeah. Carey, Lloyd, McKenna. No, McKenna wasn't 18. Tony Evans. Yeah.
I was thinking 3 digits.
You want to go triple digit?
Number 832.
Good Craig Willis impression.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
This might be my bomber bias showing, I think, a little bit, but on the very, very low chance that Anthony McDonald-Tipperwoody returns to the club next year and Essendon wins the premiership, number 43, Anthony McDonald-Tipperwoody, the roar that follows that will be like nothing else heard in human history.
Jesus, the bit that has to happen for that to happen, I reckon.
Let alone Will Setterfield's
a little bit
got a rightful right. Is rightfully taking his spot in the 43 jumper, surely. More credentials.
Big body midfielder needs to get.
Yeah.
Tipper needs to get back before the numbers get announced so he can claim the number 43. It's very important, very important. The contract needs to be re-signed.
Can I just add one last thing on this discussion? I think it is good that they keep the captains till last. That just makes perfect sense to mine. And obviously, captain, very well revered. They get read out last, and then they just get to stand on the podium. Like that's so well thought out.
I've got a bugbear with the only thing I'm not sure if they've got right. Maybe they do have it right. I don't know, but I do feel like when they name the Norm Smith medalist, it feels really quick. Like it's like the first thing they do, and then it's kind of like, oh, who won it? Who won the Norm? Because usually at that point you're still like you're getting a new beer or you're going to the dunny or whatever. Maybe they could just slip it in, right? So let's say you're Tipper and you win the Norm next year when the Bombers win the flag.
Yeah.
And they go, number 43 and this year's Norm Smith medalist. Like they just throw it in there.
That is so funny you say that. Just before you said that, that is the exact thought that came through my mind. But then I thought, what if there's a Chris Judd situation where you win the Norm Smith and you're on the losing team?
That would be awkward. That would be super awkward.
That would be. Yeah.
Do you know did you know about the Norm Smith? Do you know what bugs me about the Norm Smith medal? Is that, they vote on it like when there's like 10 minutes to go.
Do they still do that?
They still do that.
Yeah, right.
Hasn't changed. because the time it takes to collate the votes, get them communicated. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be enough of an excuse for me because I'm
In
like,
this era of instant communication, especially.
correct. What if you've got two players who are pretty close to even and then one of them ends up kicking the winning goal? Like, shouldn't that guy just get the norm? Like, but then you voted for the other guy because it's 10 minutes ago. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like that. I feel like it should be like, just wait till the siren. How many laps around the oval have they done before you get to announce it anyway? Like, there's time. There's enough time now.
That's a very good point. I was just playing FIFA, and they always, this is slightly off topic, but they always come over the ground announcing with about 10 minutes left in the game and announce the player of the match. There's still 10 minutes left. What if they kick 2 goals in the last 10 and equalise the game?
That is like running a marathon and then getting to like the 38th K and being like, okay, here's your medal. Great job. See you later. Like, it's like, no, there's still a bit to go. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Oh, not one bit. And you could have some dude in bloody Rio de Janeiro or Warsaw just who could send a text to the Norm Smith medal officials when the siren goes and have it work just like that. Or is there something that I'm missing? I don't know.
There must be another reason for it. I'm going to find out. I'm going to find
Tradition.
out.
Yeah. Footy dictionary investigation. But we should move on to love number 3, Ryan. What have you got for us?
Okay, so love number 3, because like not so much in the last few years. I'm getting old and I'm starting to forget things, but there was a real phase there for me where I was obsessed with drafts, trade periods, all of the machinations that go into building a premiership list. And I used to love looking back at, I still do, looking back at old drafts and just seeing A, the incredible gold that you can find at late picks, or B, the mistakes that clubs make that are just so horrific. And all of one of the things I love in any movie or TV show, if you give me a movie or a TV show that has like sliding doors or the butterfly effect, where it's like, if this one thing happens, it can change, destiny and the future of everybody. When they go back in time and they're like, don't touch anything because it could change, all of this stuff in the future. Like, if you look at, I looked at the 2001 draft, for instance, right? The iconic draft. It's probably the one that everybody refers to. Super draft. Just that draft alone. There's so many different ways it could have panned out. So many mistakes were made. So many things were nailed that it impacted at least 5 premierships, probably closer to 10. Like, on that day, Geelong went into that draft. They had pick 8, solid pick, right? Nothing amazing. Pick 17, pick 24, and then they had pick 40. Now, they knew they were going to use pick 40 to get Gary Ablett Jr. Pretty handy free kick for a father-son, right? So they already knew they were getting a pretty good pick. But then at 8, they take Jimmy Bartell. At 17, they take James Kelly. And at 24, they take Stevie Johnson. Like, they literally just set up their entire premiership-winning core in one draft with a bunch of picks that going into it, you wouldn't have assumed they could get one superstar, let alone 4 or 3 superstars and a very good player in James Kelly. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But that's what I love. Like, that Geelong has literally set themselves up for 3 flags on one day. Now, had they just gone slightly to the left, like there was a dude who went at pick 9 after Bartell called Luke Molan, who went to Melbourne. What if, like, someone in the Geelong recruiting was like, nah, not Bartell, let's go Molan, he's the guy. Then, like, maybe they don't win 3 flags. Or maybe they do. Who knows?
Flip side, maybe Luke Molan's a 3-time premiership player.
And a Brownlow medalist. And my favourite stat, I'm just going to swerve a little bit here, but my favourite stat, and I like to say that I created this stat. Well, it's not a stat, it's more like a trivia question.
Yep.
And see, it's been so, this is what I'm saying about me forgetting stuff now because I'm getting older. But the number of players who have done it now, I think, is 5. And this is players who have won a premiership, a Brownlow, and a Norm Smith medal. And I think there's only 5 still to have done it. And it's my favourite trivia question to ask, and it takes people a very long time to get the 5 players. I don't know. Do you want to have a crack at it?
I reckon we can rattle them off. We got Chris Judd.
Juddy, yes, correct.
Judd is the obvious one. Dusty.
So, wait, was it Premiership, Norm Smith, Brownlow? Was that it?
Yes, all 3.
Okay.
Juddy, Dusty.
Judd.
And now Black.
Oh, no.
Simon Black is a good one. Yes.
That's a good one, yeah. Are there...
Hurd.
Yes, James Hurd.
Yeah.
And Williams. Bang.
There's one more that you're forgetting. So it's actually
5,
6. Yeah, it's actually 6. So Dusty became the 6th. There's one more. But I can't believe he got Diesel. That's good. No one gets Diesel.
That's very good. Yeah, Carlton fan, to be fair.
Right, of course. There you go. Yeah, there's one more you're forgetting, and it's the guy we were just talking about, Luke Molan. No, it's Jimmy Bartell. It's Jimmy Bartell.
True. I was going to say Jimmy Bartell. I didn't realise he won a Norm Smith.
Yeah, he won a Norm Smith. So that's a pretty cool little collection of players.
And that's
he did win it. He did win a Norm, didn't he? I haven't made this up. He did.
You're right.
He did. Yeah.
Okay. But that's funny because all those players are pretty much from the last 30 years.
Yeah, well, they only started naming Norm Smith medalists in, I think, 81. So it can only be... Right, okay. I think it was 81. I think Maurice Rioli might have been the first one, I think. Or maybe it was Harms. Right. It's around that mark.
Yeah.
But
Wayne Harms.
Then, even then...
Yeah.
You've got Diesel Williams, who was the first Norm Smith winner, chronologically, I think, in that list in, 95. And then all the other ones after that. So you've got 81, like you say. It's a 14 years with none of it.
Yeah, and until Dusty and Jimmy did it, it was ages. Like there was just that little stretch there. And a lot of people throw in guys like, Michael Voss didn't win a Norm. Nathan Buckley didn't win a flag. There's like a bunch of dudes. And then you could add layers to it. I think there was another one that it's like if you add a second Brownlow, I think it's just Diesel and Judd. Is that right? Anyway, we've swerved way off my old draft thing here. But I love looking back at old drafts. That draft is just one example of it. But there's often little patches where like Melbourne's recruiting, before they nailed the Petrarca, Oliver, Viney sort of stretch, there was a stretch there of about 8 drafts where they just completely butchered every single draft pick they made and then failed to develop any players at all. And it's like you can look back and just go, what were they doing? What were they thinking? I love it. And then finding the diamonds in the rough. That 2001, Dane Swan goes at pick 58. Like Paul Medhurst goes at pick 56. Sam Mitchell goes at pick 36. And in that, so that Mitchell at 36, Luke Hodge went at 1, right? Arguably 2 of the greatest Hawthorn players of all time. Not arguably, they are. Those guys should have been at Fremantle because Fremantle, that was the year when they traded for Trent Crode and gave up pick 1 and pick 36. Like, that's insane.
It's unbelievable to look back on it. It's probably I don't reckon you think about it as much when the actual draft's on. So the draft will come up this year, and obviously you go into it with a look at your club and you've got ideas of who you want to pick up, but you're not thinking about, hang on, in 5 to 10 years' time, could this draft really, define our legacy? And on that, I just want to ask, because you say you look back at drafts, but what are your thoughts on saying teams have or clubs have won or lost draft periods after, like a day after the draft? Can you say they won it 24 hours after they've picked up the pick 36?
Well, you can't. You can because people need clickbait, but you cannot grade it. Like I reckon the earliest you could ever grade a draft, it's probably 5 years. I reckon you could make an argument that after 3 years you can get a pretty good look at it. Like there's obviously guys who went late and you could be like, oh, no, that guy should have been a top 3 or 4 pick, and vice versa. But there's no way in the moment, because look at Geelong that day. We would have looked at Geelong and gone, well, they did okay. Turns out there was an A+++, like the greatest draft haul probably ever. But we wouldn't have known on the day. And we're probably like, yeah, we give, I don't know, North Melbourne, great get, David Hale at 7. It was like, and Bartel went at 8. Like, you know, like we don't know anything in the moment. We don't know. All these kids can play footy. My experience of the draft is literally all of them can play footy. Just how they fit in, how you develop them, like injuries, bad luck, like all kinds of crap goes into them making them a star or someone who's out of the AFL in 2 years. You know, it's not just where you get picked.
Well, if Paddy McCartan stayed at St Kilda and turned into what he is now, the narrative on how they went in that draft would just be completely flipped, wouldn't it? But obviously had, 1 year off and then went to Sydney. So, yeah, just completely changes the direction of the story. But I think it's time to get a bit irritated, Ryan, and get into your 3 hates of football. What's your first one?
Okay, so, look, I hate the trade period and it's a complicated relationship because a part of me loves it, but I also hate it at the same time. As a journalist working in it, it's pretty frantic. You're trying to keep up with all the different storylines. For me, being in WA, trying to keep up with what Fremantle and West Coast are doing in particular. You're trying to make as many calls as you can. You're trying to get the news before anybody else gets it. Why? I don't actually know why we give a shit who gets it first. I can't figure out why, but it does seem to matter. So you try to go as quick as you can, and you might be 2 minutes early or 2 minutes late, and it can define your entire day or your entire week or your entire career. So I hate that part of it to a degree, but I also love it. The thing that I think we don't do right with trade period is, why do we even have a trade period? Like, why can't we just have this open market where if one club has 2 ruckmen injured and they need a ruckman, they can just go and trade for one? Like, and if they need a back pocket because they might win a flag but they're a little short in defence, maybe they can go and get a back pocket. I don't understand why we can't just have that for a good portion of the year rather than this 2-week period where trade radio takes over and, like, we all just become obsessed with Zane Cordy getting traded to St Kilda because it matters for 24 hours. It's like that part of it drives me completely mad.
I think we're slipping a little bit into SEN talkback with how you ended that point. But I want to touch on you talking about the frantic nature of trade period as a journalist and trying to be the first on the news and the first to tweet about X story, X player. Have you ever made a little slip up? Who was it? John Ralph made a bit of an infamous one earlier this season. Have you ever made a slip up like that you've had to delete? One that you're willing to talk about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the DeGoey one, so I think you talk about the DeGoey one with John Ralph earlier this year?
Yes, it was DeGoey. Yeah,
I did that too.
Suspended fine.
Yeah, so
he thought he got suspended and fined.
Me too. And so I did the same thing. And I think there was about 4 or 5 of us. I can't remember who the other journos were. But the weird thing with that was when the release came through from Collingwood, I read the release word for word, and somehow my brain did what John's brain did and the other guys and just said, oh, he's suspended, blah, 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 blah. And I went with it, and then I stopped for a minute and went, hold on a minute, I'm going to read that again. And I read it again. I was like, nope, that's not right. And then I deleted it, and then you wouldn't believe how quickly Collingwood fans can screenshot things these days. They were onto it. And fair enough. And I've been doing this for like 15 years now, but I'm still learning lessons. And like you do need to take a breath sometimes and take a beat. There's this like part of you that really wants to be first because being first has currency. Like if you look at someone now like Cal Toomey, geez, we're getting very serious, aren't we? If you look at like Cal Toomey now, right? He's broken this Jason Horne-Francis story. He's broken the Brett Ratton story. Right now, Cal Toomey's currency as a person you want to employ if you're a news agency is extremely high. Like he's working for AFL.com. I would be shocked if, you know, the Sevens and the Nines and the Herald Suns of the world aren't asking the question of Cal, saying, mate, how about you come and do that stuff for us? Like, there's a real commercial value in it because if you're first, people will come to you. If you're right all the time, like Cal really, he genuinely is. Like, I don't think there's been one instance I can remember where he's gone, and had incorrect information. Like, there's real value in that. And so I know the punters are all like, oh, just, better to don't have to be first. Who cares if you're first? Well, in our industry, it does matter. Like, there's real value attached to it. But the trick is to somehow be right as well as being first. And that's the really hard part, because often you can get info and it's right, or it's 70% right, but that 30% is really important. Like, like the De Goey thing, for instance, like, in some ways he did cop a ban, but it's not a real ban. Like, it's a suspended ban. So it's like, it's not really the same thing. But if someone gives you, someone could give you that info and said, yeah, he's banned for whatever weeks it was. And then like they send another text like 30 seconds later, it's like, but it's suspended. Like, there's every chance you go with it before you get that second text. Do you know what I mean? So it's a really difficult thing to navigate. And trade period is sort of like the highest level of it. Like, it's kind of nuts.
More of a journalistic thing, I think, instead of a football-wide thing. But it would be a very difficult thing to traverse sometimes when you want to run with information, but you can't, or you're not 100% sure about it. It'd be tricky, especially with Twitter, the Collingwood fans of the world and the Carlton fans and the Essendon fans. Yeah. Like, you'd be pushing shit uphill sometimes.
Yeah, you get smashed, and sometimes you'll go with something and like it might take a few days for it to get confirmed by a club or a player or whatever. And for those 3 days, you might cop a bit of shit. There was one I had a couple of years ago, or probably about a year ago actually, with Lachie Neale and him wanting to go back to Fremantle. Do you guys remember that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So like, I sat on that story for like 2 weeks, right? Like, so I knew there was interest of him to go to Fremantle, but I couldn't do the story because I'd sort of promised the source that I got it from that I would hold it until after Brisbane were out of the final series. And once Brisbane were out, I think they lost in like a really close game. Came to the next day and I'd like, right, I've been sitting on this for 2 weeks. There's probably other journos who know about it and might be doing the same thing. And then so ideally I probably would have waited another few days for that story to break it, and then it might have been more developed, but I couldn't wait. So it was accurate, like he had interest in coming back to Fremantle and there had been conversations, but did he get to Fremantle? No. And partially I do believe that story being broken early impacted his ability to get to Fremantle. Like, wow. So in some ways, well, I don't believe that. I know that for a fact. Like, I've had conversations with people since, and because it disrupted the Brisbane side of things, they weren't aware of it. They got, they ramped up really quickly and things got pivoted. And Lachie had a fantastic season, signed a new contract. Fremantle had a great year and have kind of moved on. So it kind of worked out well for everybody. But at the time, like, it was pretty chaotic. I copped a lot of abuse from some Brisbane fans. But I was like, the story is right, mate. Like, Lachie confirmed it, Brisbane confirmed it, Fremantle confirmed it. What more do you want from me? So even when you're right, you can be wrong. Yeah.
And if Neil went on to win the Brownlow this year, I'm sure you would have put your hand up first and said, I take full responsibility for it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Just one more thing before we move on to your second hat, because I know we're running out of time, but is there a worst set of supporters to cop shit from?
Collingwood are pretty bad. Like, and I know there's like that whole, Collingwood fans are ferals and they're, got no teeth and all that, but they're really passionate, and they're very protective of their players. I would say they're right up there. One that surprised me this year was North Melbourne. Like, I wrote a piece for the paper over here about some mistakes that North Melbourne have been making over the years and how that club has just put itself in a really tough position. This is before the Clarko hire, and I copped it. Like, the North Melbourne fans came at me like real hard. And I was like, wow. Like, a part of me wanted to reply and say I didn't know North had any members, but I didn't. I took the high road. But yeah, and that people love their footy teams. Like, they really do. Like, it's life and death stuff.
Especially when it's back's against the wall. Like you feel like everyone's against you when you're shit. Like Essendon fan and Carlton fan in this online meeting would know a lot about that. So I feel like that's the passion comes out extra fiery in that.
It's like when you have kids and you're like, no one else can criticise my kids, only I can. It's the same with your footy team.
It's nice to see the shin bone of spirit still alive and well.
Oh, it's in there. It's still there.
Ryan, should we move on to your hate about the songs? And we might make this a quickish one so we can focus more on number 3.
The moment it hit me is that songs after goals is just shit. And obviously, I think this all kicked off in that Gabba grand final. That was when we first noticed it, because I think the Gabba had been doing it for a while, but it's, Brisbane are a bit off Broadway. Like you don't always watch Brisbane games maybe or every week, and maybe you don't pick it up when you're watching it casually unless you're there. I was at that grand final at the Gabba, and like it's a grand final, and I know it was a weird grand final because of COVID and it was a different place and all that, but like I think Dusty Martin kicked his goal and it was like one of the great goals in grand final history, and then like Britney Spears, like, oops, I did it again, is pumping out from the and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is a grand final. I don't need to be pumped up by Britney here. I'm already feeling completely alive. Like, we don't need it. I do. The one part of it I do like is getting an insight into personalities of players. So, like, Charlie Cameron with Country Road, or like, I think Joe Danaher's The Frozen song. Like, I do like.
Let it go.
Yeah, I do like that we get that little taste of like what song are they going to pick, and it's their song for the year. And if like a random defender kicks a goal and you haven't heard the song before, it's like, oh, that's this song. Like, so there's part of me who likes it, but not in grand finals, not in finals, definitely not. And I'm still not sure about the regular game stuff either.
It's one of the perks, I think, of watching games, and particularly grand finals, on Channel 7. Because they have the ad break and you miss it. I'm fortunate enough to have Foxtel, but then you have to watch the grand final on Channel 7. And
that's true.
That's really annoying. But if it was a Gabba grand final, for example, you miss the music. And it's an off-putting thing about the AFLW. I've really gotten into the AFLW this season with Essendon coming in, but it's the booming songs, the poppy songs of 2013 or whatever it is, just playing all around the ground on the shitty tinny speakers at Vic Park VICPK is just horrific.
Yeah, it's just that "Call Me Maybe" like blaring into your ears. It's like, you're like, I don't need this. I'm already here and excited to be here. Like, it's weird.
It's disgusting. Harper, it is nice to have someone that agrees with me on the Gabba song point with the individual player songs.
I do like that.
Yeah, we have spoken about this at length ad nauseum, Harper and I, with the Gabba songs. And
on many episodes.
I've made my stance. He's made his stance, so I think we should leave it there.
Daniel Charity's made his correct stance as well.
And Ryan's made his correct stance. So I think we should leave it there.
Yeah, well, okay. I hope our next guest is on my side, so it's 3v2. But Ryan, move on to your third hate.
Yeah, so my third hate is a lack of analytics. Now, I'm really into my NBA basketball, and I think a few years ago, like, the game sort of shifted, and a lot of that came because of the analytics. So, and for people who aren't that into it statistics-wise, it's the stats, but it's like the next level of stats. And it's the ability to read the game through numbers and see trends and maybe identify those trends and think, hey, we should play this way or that way, or this player does things like this and we should try and stop him using that. Now, I know the clubs get way more access to this stuff than we do. Like, we get the kicks, the handballs, the fantasy type stats, the real basic shit. But all we get is this fingernail deep sort of analysis with those stats. Like, I would love to know, like, and I think most people would understand the game better if we could track, like, where players are running, their running patterns, how many steps. If Dustin Martin takes 3 steps before he kicked or 4 steps, is one more accurate than the other? Like, that sort of stuff, like, where it's like a next level. And then so if you're the opposition, you're like, make him kick off the third step. Don't let him have that fourth step, because if he has 4 steps, he hits a target 98% of the time. But if he has 3 steps, it's only at 73. You know, like stuff like that, which sounds ridiculous. But if we're trying to get right to the absolute, because that's what happens in the NBA, right? They're like, don't let Curry dribble the ball 3 times, because if he does that, it's like he doesn't miss. You know, or at this exact spot on the court, don't let him shoot from there. Push him 1 step to the left, and he can't hit it there. Like, that's the stuff I want to see.
I was just going to say, I love the idea, and personally, I agree with you about the GPS numbers. I know they release how many kilometres everyone's run a game.
Yeah.
Seeing just a glimpse of it firsthand with the GPS trackers, I'd love for that to be made more publicly available, how they break down high sprint efforts, and then, you know, time spent jogging, time spent running, time spent walking, and that shows their pattern on the ground. I'd love for that to be made publicly available, and I think that'd add another layer of interest into the game. I don't know about you, Harper, but
we get the Telstra tracker from Ryan's employer, but that's very surface level, isn't it?
It is. That's what I mean. It's like, oh, he ran 20 Ks. It's like, oh, that's really impressive, but that's all I get. Like, I need more than that.
I was going to say, I know. Well, I don't know AFL clubs, but I know most recruiters and that they don't value how far a player's ran in a game, but they value how many high-speed sprint efforts a player's made, or how often they're running at high velocity, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think much of the public are aware of that. They just see the basic number of kilometres ran. But if this information was more widely available, it would certainly, you know, open up the eyes of the more general supporters, I think.
Yeah, and so they have this stuff. They actually have the information, or maybe not the Dustin Martin 3 steps or 4 steps thing, but they have a lot of that stuff. And they just keep it. To Champion Data, who the AFL own, they have the stats. But if you want them, you have to pay like this incredibly stupid amount of money. And then like you have to still be able to decipher what the stats mean. And we don't get much of that. Like sometimes on the couch we'll use stuff like that, and they'll do a little bit of a deeper analysis. But we don't get the detail. We don't get the detail.
I think possible reason for the obsession with the more simple stats from the media outlets in Aussie rules is that there's so much influence from gambling companies in footy and sport in Australia in general, really, and that it's easier to bet on the simple stats compared to the if this happens, then this happens type stats, isn't it? Like it's just your simple number, over or under 30 disposals or whatever it is. And it's like, I could go on a massive rant about this, but you've got just in the palm of your hand on the AFL app, you can bet on a million different things, but none of them are the more specific stats that we're all yearning for.
Over under repeat sprints.
Yeah, should be a good one. Maybe we're just a dumb country. Maybe they've just dumbed it down for us because they think we wouldn't understand any more complex stuff.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Do you get access to Champion Data yourself, Ron?
No, I don't. So from a news perspective, we don't. When I do if I do the boundary for 7, if the games are over here, I'll get some great stats from Swampy or Josh Kay, who are two of the stats guys for 7. They're like superhuman stats dudes. Absolutely, they're amazing. So they'll do a pack of stuff, and it's got some really good stuff in it. And you get some extra Champion Data stuff. But from a news perspective, no, we don't get any of that. So we have to pay another subscription to get that. We just don't.
One final question before we let you go, Ryan. I was listening to a podcast probably almost a year ago now with Swamp. I think it might have been with Will Schofield or someone. And they addressed him as Swamp. They didn't know, or they said they didn't know his real name. And Swamp said, no one knows my real name other than Bruce McAvaney or something. Do you know his real name?
Do you know what? I don't off the top of my head, but I feel like I have come across it once and been like, who's that? And then someone was like, that's Swamp. I'm pretty sure Maybe he's
You don't need to
legally
tell us or
changed it
anything.
now.
Yeah.
I don't think I know it. But I do think there was a moment where I was like, who's that? Like, what's that name on? Because sometimes you get like an email list comes out and you know all the names on it, but there's one you don't know, or like, you know, that sort of thing, you know. But he's in my phone as Swamp. Like, I don't have I don't have his name in there. It's
I reckon that just makes him more revered.
Same.
Yeah,
I saw him.
exactly.
I saw him last week actually at the WBBL. He's magnificent.
Really? Is he a WA based guy?
No, he'll fly with the team. Like they'll fly him around.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a full time gig. Like it's awesome. So he does a cricket, does a footy, and yeah, he's all over it.
Swamp, if you'd like to come on the Footy Dictionary, reach out to us.
You need to get him on. That would be amazing.
He'd be so good. He'd be amazing. We'd love to have you, mate. And Ryan, I think that just about wraps us up. We've got to let you go, and we've loved having you. It's been awesome. So thank you very much.
No, it's been great, guys. I was really excited to come on. Keep doing what you're doing. Like, it's in the love of the game and the hate of the game. It's all there.
All covered.
Mate, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rhino.
Thanks, boys. I'll talk to you soon.
Hamish, thanks to you too. See you, mate. We'll catch you next week, guys.
Catch up.